going to work on a video for the Creative Arts Collaboration Group. They have a virtual art crawl March 16th through the 20th. It's hashtag CAC Fantasy Art. I'll put that on the screen so that you can see it. Before I get started on that, I want to show you the sketches that I've been doing today. I've been doing sketches in this little art journal every day. So today, I sketched this gentleman. There'll be no process videos with that. This is just me sketching, me practicing. I sketched this gentleman, this lady, and this ear. So these are the ones that I did today. I'm having a lot of fun doing these. I hope to be able to keep that up. I want to talk about the virtual art crawl and the theme, which is fantasy art. I was looking through my stash and, well, I ran across this book that I got last year at the thrift store, Tales of Fantasy. I was reading through this. I enjoy this book, but I was reading this and I very interested in the Enchanted doll. I thought, well, maybe I can do something with that. So I am going to, out of chapter 1, this story was written by Mark Lemon, and I don't know the complete story. I haven't read the complete story. I've read enough to be interested, and I've read enough to do art with it. But I was doing some research on the Enchanted doll, and I ran across an article on the internet, was unpublished letters of Charles Dickens, and he had written a letter to Mark Lemon. Mark Lemon had dedicated this story to Charles Dickens' 2 oldest daughters. I thought that was very interesting. I love letters. You can just learn a lot. So what I'm going to do out of chapter 1 is because I was reading, I have to tell you, I was reading this and I was getting very interested in it. And I was reading portions of it, and I came to a page that I had painted out. I'm going, oh, that stopped me in my tracks. There's another one here. I painted it out so I couldn't read what happened next, so I'm going to have to go check it out at the library or something like that to find how the story goes. But I'm going to pull out chapter 1 because I've already disassembled this book and painted out of it and used it in my urban sketching. I'm going to use excerpts from chapter 1. And for purposes of telling you what I'm going to do on my art journal page, I'm going to snip out the little paragraphs here, the little sentences that I'm interested in. So I'm going to be pulling those paragraphs out of this chapter 1 that came from this book, Tales of Fantasy. And I'm going to be using them in my art journal. I'm going to work in my Larger Delusions art journal. I'm going to be working on this page. I'm going to be working with some painted papers. And I have to say I'm reverting back to the pareidolia concept because I see Jacob Pout in here. I see the doll maker, and I certainly see an old gnarled up tree. And I'm beginning to see the little fairies right here, at least the ebony black fairy. So, and then I just chose this blue because of a summer's evening. Now I wanted to show you too, the closest thing that I think I ever came to fantasy art was last summer when I was out doing my urban sketching and I was taking pictures. And my camera was just swinging back and forth by all these flowers. And I was looking at the photograph and I go, oh my goodness, I caught fairies having a picnic. And I came home and I did a watercolor of that. I was working on 30 and 30 paintings in 30 days in June of 2015. But here's my watercolor of the fairies having a picnic, and what it was really, it was flowers and the camera, as it was swinging by, blurred the flowers, and it blurred it into images that looked like they were fairies out having a picnic. So I really don't do a lot of fantasy art. I think this is probably the closest that I've come, but I enjoyed it. So I'm going to get started on my page. I think I've explained it enough. I am going to go into fast forward motion and work on my page, and let's see what happens. I start off by snipping out the text out of the chapter, The Enchanted Doll. This will be the journaling on the page. Snipping it all out. Now see Jacob the doll maker in this painted paper. He just popped out. How about that? And then I use my other painted papers to get a sense of how I want this page to look. There's the gnarled tree trunk. And of course a tree trunk has to have some leaves. Now I just decide to give the entire page a blue background, painting it up there. Then I take a baby wipe and smooth out my brush strokes. This just gives the page a background so that I don't have all white. No more meaning than that. I add some blue in the background of that gnarled oak to make it look like it's got a hole in the base of the trunk of the tree. And add some blue around my other pages just to make them blend into the background, kind of arranging those pages how I want them. Deciding how I want Jacob's torso to look, I choose that sort of a gold color. Now I'm starting to collage these painty papers down. I'm really happy that I could just take those painted papers that I painted on other projects and convert them into an illustration for this story. I had no idea that they would be used for this when I painted them. But they just all seem to come together. There's Jacob. He just popped out of that page almost. I even see the black fairy. Can you see her? She's sort of standing by the hole in the gnarled oak, the beech tree trunk. Now I'm just putting in some trees in the background and blue around the bottom. Just defining the whole background scene by collaging painty papers down. There's Jacob again. I'm figuring out how I want him to fit there on the right-hand side of the page. Very happy with how this is coming already, turning out already. Collage down Jacob the doll maker and put in some scraps for the trees to define them out there. Here are the text. I collaged them down onto black background to make them stand out. Now I'm sketching in Jacob the doll maker's face. Now he's very cartoonish at this point, but I'm just getting a sense of how I want him to look. I'll go back in and paint out his face. And there's the ebony doll and the black fairy. It's amazing how these things, they just kind of show up in the painted papers. It just amazes me how that happens. Now I'm just sketching in the background trees and getting a sense of how I want the page to look on the picture to look on the page. Just drawing it out, writing out the title of the page, The Enchanted Doll, which is the title of the fairy tale by Mark Lemon. I'm using my white fine line paint applicator to outline those letters to make them stand out more on the page. Now I'm using my gold screen printing ink in my fine line paint applicator just to add some decorative elements on the black fairy and along the border. And then I'm using a black marker to border the entire page. Now I'm getting ready to work on Jacob's face. I don't like how cartoonish he looks, so I painted it out, giving the face more of a sense of shadow and depth. And you'll see as I work with this, it'll go through several transformations until I get it how I'm really happy with it, but it does work out in the end. Adding some decorative elements on the doll maker's torso on his jacket. Now he's starting to take shape there. His mouth goes through several transformations until I get it exactly like I want it. Right now it looks like it's bleeding from the lips, but that will change. Adding some highlights on his face. Working with those background trees a little bit more, making them look like it's an evening time scene. Now Jacob's face is starting to take shape to be like I want it. Getting those lips how I want them. Can you see how he's staring at the black fairy? I'm amazed at how those elements just jumped out of those painted papers. Now I'm adding some silver fairy dust in the trees and around the fairy, just to give it a little bit more of a fantasy type feel to the page. This is very much an art journal page. I'm just telling the story as I read it. Now I'm adding some decorative black dots around the border of the page. Just sets off and frames the entire page. Now you'll see on top of those black dots, I'm using my gold fine line paint applicator, and I'm adding some gold dots in the center of those black dots, and I really like that effect. I'm really happy with how this page has turned out. I'm signing it, and there it is, all finished. I'm very happy with how this turned out. I illustrated a portion of Chapter 1 out of the fairy tale, The Enchanted Doll, written by Mark Lemon. I found it in this Tales of Fantasy book. I pulled the sections that I illustrated out of the book because I use this book for my art journaling, and so I put them on my art journal page. And this is the doll maker. He goes into the woods and he meets the black fairy who gives him an enchanted doll. So I'm really happy with how this turned out. I hope that you've enjoyed watching me create it. And I would say to you, put hashtag CAC Fantasy Art in your YouTube browser and go look for more videos of the Creative Arts Collaboration March Virtual Art Crawl, which is all centered around fantasy. I hope that you've enjoyed watching this video, and I will see you on the next page.